Today you can operate a coffee machine, check the weather, call a taxi, and so on from your phone or computer. There are lots of applications that have now become an integral part of our lives and constantly emerge in our daily routine. Agriculture is no exception. As of today, our farm, being innovative, also utilizes a wide range of applications. A month and a half without a single drop of rain. The situation keeps deteriorating even further. I have no idea where it draws its strength from and how it's going to nourish all these thousands of seeds. But it doesn't look bad. Hello everyone. I'm glad to welcome you back to our channel. And today, I'd like to discuss a very interesting topic. No one can deny that digitalization, I pronounce that word, you see, not like our common acquaintance.
About digitalization. Sorry.
Has significantly integrated into our lives. So, let's talk about the applications we use on our farm. Today, I've counted 32 apps that we use to varying extents. The one that manages our entire farm and all our activities is CropWise, formerly known as Cropio. And logically, I should start with this program. However, today I'd like to discuss something different. A platform that for some reason is being compared with Cropio. In reality, in my opinion, these are two different applications, and they hardly overlap in my activities. It's an application called OneSoil. I could say that my journey into precision agriculture partially began with the OneSoil company, specifically with Seva, one of the company founders and developers of this app. Hello, Seva. I was introduced to him by Vitaly Shubaransky about 4 years ago. Since then, we've had a fruitful collaboration that continues to this day. What does OneSoil do for transitioning into precision agriculture? And how does it assist farmers and businesses like mine? First and foremost, we utilize NDVI imagery, which is of very high quality here. They're frequently updated. It's very convenient to view them, in my opinion. I have at least 4 or 5 apps where I can check NDVI, but OneSoil is the most convenient option. Plus, it's free. Oh, that's what I have to start with, actually. You can add your fields and monitor your NDVI, document your field's history, generate field reports, and much more that would be beneficial for you. I believe it will be useful for you, so go ahead and download this application. It's available for both Android and for iPhone, so check it out. I won't cover everything today because there's a lot to explore in there. We use the Field Data tab, and we have several OneSoil weather sensors that monitor weather conditions, all of which are accessible here. We check our crop rotation within this app and view the weather, as I mentioned. The weather data here is quite detailed and excellent. By the way, we're doing something else very interesting, which is a new feature in OneSoil, but I'll tell you about it a bit later. Now, I suggest we focus on NDVI and head out to the fields.
Well, I left Chattanooga, boy, had $1 and a dime. Headed out for Nashville on the Hard Rock Line. I'm working on that old steamboat and learned to rob and steal. When my feet had touched dry land, how happy.
Півтора місяці.
For a month and a half, there hasn't been a single drop of rain. And it's so catastrophic, but the situation is worsening even further. For some crops, like corn, for instance, it's already critically bad.
Для деяких культур, таких як кукурудза, наприклад, це вже є взагалі критично.
Working for that dollar, but it never adds up at all. But coming around the river banker, the old train was so sane.
The hat is a must because the sun burns your scalp in 3 seconds. Let's go, we'll drag some wheat. According to the OneSoil app, we're currently in a high productivity zone. If you look closely, I don't know if the camera will capture it. You can even see this zone is slightly higher, and then there's a small variation in wheat, it's lower there. Let's count and see. The wheat itself looks great. Look at this ear of wheat, a pretty good ear. I don't know what it's holding onto and how it's going to fill all these thousands of seeds, but right now, it looks good. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 ears. That's the average result here. Let's head to another zone, a less favorable one, and see if there's really any difference in height. Well, we didn't bring a tape measure, sorry, but it's about waist-high wheat for me. The green leaf is tall, and the flank leaf looks great. Yes, it's starting to struggle with septoria a bit. The tip is already drying up. But look at the weather conditions we're in. Now, we're heading to the low NDVI zone. Look at the tracks we've left. We've trampled down 100 kilograms of wheat. And now we have a zone of low productivity here. There are several of them here. Well, we'll stop somewhere around here, go in, and check the wheat. Well, as you can see, NDVI doesn't lie. The leaf's color is lighter and it's lower. You can even see the difference. Even farther in that zone, it changes. It's already higher, and you can see the drop. What's bad here? Firstly, the soil here is sandy, more sand than anything else. If it weren't for the wheat, I would have shown you. It's not entirely on the edge because we seed this field from here, but from this side it is a bit trampled. And indeed, NDVI is accurate. We're in a poor zone, and the wheat here is much worse. Let's count. The number of ears here is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 7, 10, 12, 14, 16, 12, 16. So clearly less. On average, probably 14. Here, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 14. You can immediately see that the wheat is worse here. And there's a correlation between NDVI and the wheat in the field. You can also see that the flank leaf is worse. It's more curled and so on. Apparently, there's a lack of moisture or nutrients here. We do nutrient maps for winter wheat, winter rapeseed, winter barley, and all winter crops thanks to OneSoil. The first round of fertilization is done by productivity zones. The second round is based on NDVI zones, where we provide more fertilizer in the better areas. In the poorer productivity zones, we provide less accordingly. This way, with the help of those high productivity zones that appear in our fields, where we provide more nutrients, we achieve a significantly higher overall yield. I hope I explained it simply. Yes, the wheat is lower here, and the quality is worse, so NDVI matches with reality. Next, we'll probably take a look at some sunflowers, and it will clearly demonstrate the direct correlation. It's visibly apparent where the productivity zone directly correlates with the crop that's growing there. Let's go. As promised, we've arrived at another field, which I consider the ultimate example of precision agriculture, demonstrating productivity zones clearly. This is our field, named sand. It's called that because there's a lot of sand here, not normal soil. And now, it's very clear to see the productivity zone. We're currently in a poor productivity zone, and just look at the sunflowers. They're completely absent here. They didn't grow at all on the edge, and here they're very short and stunted, just as OneSoil shows it. We always start seeding from this field, as it warms up faster. But if we move to the better productivity zone, you'll notice that the sunflowers start growing taller, and the soil becomes richer as well, if we just look at it. Why did these productivity zones form in this field? It's quite simple. It's due to the terrain. We're at the highest point of this field. It's not large, just 17 hectares. But at the highest point of this field, it slopes downward. And all the nutrients, humus, water, and everything else flows downhill. Therefore, the yield is good there, just like on most of our fields. Here, at the highest point of the field, we always have a poor productivity zone. This is what NDVI and OneSoil show us. We sow less here and apply fewer fertilizers, as there's no result here at all. Why waste resources on this area? We save on seeds and fertilizers here, and we allocate them to the productivity zone below. This way, the field averages a decent yield. As promised, I will now talk about a real innovation from OneSoil. Not many people have heard of this feature yet, but we have been working with it for the second year. The app is called OneSoil Yield. The main function in OneSoil Yield is variable rate application. And when building the productivity maps, they also account for soil brightness. So, what is this parameter? You can even see it on Google Maps. Go to your field and you will see darker and brighter areas of the field. In almost 99% of the cases, these darker and brighter areas correlate with humus content, and accordingly with water content and soil type. So, in 99% of cases, you can assume that darker soil usually yields better harvests, and there's more humus in such soil. On this map, these darker soils are considered high productivity zones. Based on this, and with a large amount of data and field experiments, OneSoil Yield was created. Let's take a look at a field for more clarity. Once you log in this app and add your fields, you can also add fields from OneSoil. This platform is not free, unfortunately, but considering how much work it does, I think the cost of this program is completely justified. You get analyses of all your fields within a few hours, and fields can be transferred from the free OneSoil app. Here is a field report. Here you can see the average productivity based on data from several years. You can see the stability of your zones in that field.
в даному
As you
полі
can
трошки
see,
так
there's
попався
100%
поле.
stability in all
100%
zones on this field.
Стабільність усіх зон. Карти по
You
врожайності
can
в
also
цьому
add
році,
yield
і
maps
тоді
if you have
дані
them,
будуть ще
and the data
точніші.
will be even
Програма
more
попрацює,
accurate.
І зони самі продуктивності стануть ще точнішими.
There's also a
Є,
map of soil brightness
значить,
that I
карта
already
статусу
mentioned,
ґрунту, те, про що
where
я
darker
говорив,
areas
де
usually have more
темніше,
humus
там більше
and
вміст
brighter
гумусу,
areas have less
де
humus.
яскравіше, там менший вміст гумусу.
You can see
Собственно,
this on the
по шкалі це
scale.
можна і побачити. Знову ж таки, тут
There's
є
also
і
the
рельєф
topography of the
цього
field
поля,
that
який
also
також
allows us to build the
коригує
correct
і,
productivity zones.
дозволяє нам побудувати правильні зони продуктивності. І знову підсумуємо.
And again,
Ці
to
всі дані
summarize,
програма бере
OneSoil Yield
сама,
automatically
і на
collects and
основі,
analyzes
я так
all this
розумію,
data,
штучного
and it
інтелекту,
uses
що це
artificial
так,
intelligence to
мене
calculate
поправлять.
productivity
Вона
zones,
вираховує
which
ці
we use in
самі
our
зони
farm.
продуктивності. Ми можемо тут на
With these
основі
maps,
цих карт
you can make a
зробити,
planting map,
в цій
a
програмі
map for
зробити,
crop protection products
карту на
application,
сівбу,
and a fertilizer
карту на
map.
внесення засобів захисту рослин, на
We can
внесення
also
добрив,
combine these
а
operations
можемо
into
ці
one
декілька
if your
операцій
monitor and equipment
об'єднати в одне,
supports it.
якщо ваш монітор і ваше
For example,
знаряддя
combining
з
variable
цим
rate
може
sowing on
справлятися.
corn
Наприклад,
and
сіяти
variable rate
диференційно
fertilizer
кукурудзу і
application.
диференційно вносити припосівне добриво.
All right, but let's
Так,
do
але
something
давайте
simple.
зробимо щось
Let's
звичайне,
start with
давайте
planting.
сівбу. Ми вибираємо вкладку
We
сівба,
select the
і
planting
ми
tab,
маємо два
and we have
варіанти,
two
як ми
options for
можемо
creating
на
the
основі
map,
створити карту
based on the
завдання.
productivity
Це на
map
основі
and
карти
based on the actual
продуктивності,
vegetation.
бачите, і на основі актуальної вегетації на сьогоднішню хвилину. Я би,
I would
звісно,
prefer
вибирав
using
для
productivity
сівби
maps
саме
for
карту
sowing.
продуктивності. Так ми, в принципі,
However,
вибираємо.
when it comes to
А от уже,
fertilizing
якщо
or
це йде
applying
якесь
crop
підживлення
protection products,
або
it's
внесення
probably
ЗЗС,
better to
звісно,
choose maps
краще,
based on
напевно,
actual vegetation.
вибирати карти на основі актуальної вегетації.
The choice
Вибір
is
завжди
always
за вами.
yours.
Рекомендація
But
моя
I would recommend
користуватися
using
такими
productivity
схемами
zones for
на
this map.
основі зон продуктивності. Так.
Now,
ми
we are on a
переходимо
page
тепер
where
на
3 zones are drawn since we
де
selected 3 zones.
намальовані, три зони, бо ми
There is a
вибрали
zone
три
of
зони,
low
далі
productivity,
розповім.
medium productivity,
Зона
and high
низької
productivity.
продуктивності, середньої і високої. Можемо переключитися
We can
на
add
іншу
more
зону,
zones, for example, a
наприклад,
map
на
with
5
5
зон
productivity
де буде
zones,
більш
where productivity
детальніше
zones are
зони
depicted in more
продуктивності
detail.
помальовані. І ця карта, наприклад,
This
мені
particular
подобається
map I
найбільше,
like
я
the
працюю з
most,
5
and I
зонами
mainly
в
work
основному.
with 5
Ну,
zones.
і є 7,
There can also be 7
тоді буде
zones.
просто важко знаряддя
But it's more
переключатися
challenging
між
for
цими
machinery to
зонами,
switch rates
набагато
between these zones.
важче.
So I believe the
Тому,
golden mean
якби,
is
на
5
сьогоднішній
productivity
день я
zones.
рахую, що все-таки золота середина – це 5 зон продуктивності.
We choose the
Обираємо
number of
кількість зон,
zones,
вибираємо
select the
культуру,
crop
яку
we
ми
are
сіємо,
sowing,
наприклад,
for
кукурудзяну
example, corn for
зерно,
grain.
прописуємо
Specify the
сорт,
variety.
наприклад, якийсь там
It's just an
умовний,
example.
ДКС 4351. Виставляємо
Then we set the
середню
average
норму,
rate,
не знаю,
knowing that we
наприклад,
used to sow
наприклад, ми в цьому
65,000
році сіяли
seeds per hectare
65
this year.
тисяч насінин на гектар.
We specify how many
прописуємо,
seeds we'd like to allocate in
В
each
яку зону
productivity zone.
продуктивності скільки насінин ми хотіли би внести.
The app
От сама,
also offers some options.
Програма запропонувала нам свої варіанти.
For example,
плюс
plus
7%,
7%,
плюс 5%
plus
зону
30%
високої
here,
продуктивності,
minus
зону низької
6%,
продуктивності,
minus
менше
11%
мінус
here.
6 і мінус 11%. Але ви можете в ручному
It depends on
режимі
how
задати
productivity
ті
differs between the
параметри, які ви
zones.
хочете. Наприклад,
But you can
саму
manually
високу
set the
зону я
rates
не
you
хочу в
want.
цьому році
For
вийти за
example,
75
I don't want to go
тисяч
beyond
насінин.
75,000
Рік,
seeds in the
насправді,
high
ми, в
productivity
принципі,
zone
не
this year
помилилися. Нас
because the year is quite
сильно,
dry.
ми вам так лише
And we were
показали.
right in our decision.
Значить,
Our fields are all
зону
sown now,
трошки
and now I am just showing you how it
нижчу
works.
поставимо 70 тисяч.
This is in the slightly lower productivity zone. We will set
Зону
70,000 seeds in the zone. Below the
нижче
average
середньої
productivity zone,
продуктивності
60,000 seeds.
Наприклад, в зону
In the zone
поганої
of poor
продуктивності
productivity on almost
майже
barren sand,
пустий
we set
пісок
55,000.
ставимо 55 тисяч.
We just make a few clicks,
Просто
and the
нажимаємо, і
platform
програма
generates the
генерує
prescription
нам
map.
карту продуктивності. Яку ви
You should
зразу
immediately
питаєте,
ask
яку
what
вилку
rate to
робити?
put.
Тобто, який
What if I
переход,
put
якщо там ми поставили
65,000?
65, чи обов'язково робити там плюс 5 тисяч?
Is it necessary to do poly 5,000 seeds in the high zone and 5,000 seeds in the low zone?
Ні, абсолютно немає
No,
правдивої,
there is no
правильної
definitive right way to
інформації,
do
як
it.
це правильно робити.
How should you do it
Ми
correctly?
експериментуємо кожного року.
We do experiments every year. Well, it doesn't make sense to change the rate for 1,000 or 2. For ourselves, we have determined that 5,000-6,000 seeds per zone is quite sufficient for today.
Цілком достатньо, тому ми робимо так.
Here, the app automatically calculates how many seeds are needed for the entire area.
Потрібно на всю площу. Можете переділити на
You can divide it by the number of seeds in the bag you use to know right away how many are needed for this field.
На це поле вам потрібно посівних одиниць. І далі є
And further,
саме цікаве,
there's the most
на мою
interesting
думку,
part,
в цій
trials.
програмі. Це досліди. Значить, ми міняємо
We can manually change the sowing direction.
напрям посіву наш.
Here, if it's visible, control strips appear. We change their direction. This is the direction of planting. And that's how we sow this field. Basically, that's how we usually do it. So why is all this being done? It is needed to have test plots in different zones of the field to test all rates. What does that mean? The program does it for you. You only chose the width and the number of these control strips, as they call them. We had 2 of them, and the width was 100 meters. What does the app do next? In each productivity zone, it applies 2 mirror rates of the rate in that zone. That is, if we had 55,000 in this zone, it placed 70,000 and 75,000 there. Why? To understand if we built the sowing map correctly, whether our logic in distributing rates, or we needed to put a lower sowing rate. After harvesting, you can analyze it in OneSoil Yield, or the program can do it for you. We can even show you how this works. Here is our second field. In 2020, there was corn here. The weather conditions were challenging at the time. The corn yield wasn't very high, but in general it's highly informative. This field has a zone with poor productivity and a middle one here, and a good one here. 3 zones in total. Control strips were made here to be able to analyze the results of variable rate application. If you load a yield map here, the app generates a harvesting report for you. You can even drag it like this. In this report, you can see that the average yield of this field was almost 8 tons, and the average sowing rate was 73,000 seeds. Here's the harvesting report where you can see yield by productivity zones in kilograms per hectare. In the low productivity zone, the best result is achieved with a decrease in the sowing rate. It's almost 5.2 tons. Increasing the sowing rate led to a decrease in yield. In the middle zone, everything is the opposite. Increasing the sowing rate, the yield increases. In the high productivity zone, the same dependence. The higher the sowing rate, the higher the yield, up to almost 12 tons. What I wanted to add, indeed, this application is paid. It uses a lot of data. It cannot be free. You need to pay for it. Contact the OneSoil company and they will make you a price offer. But the application is very cool. What would I do without it now? Previously, we drew all these productivity zones manually. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of data, and the result was approximately the same. Now, you can do all of this, as you saw, almost with the result of a few mouse clicks, and get the same maps. The conclusion is that with each passing year, precision agriculture becomes simpler and more beneficial. So, if you have the desire and the equipment to perform variable rate application, be sure to use OneSoil Yield. OneSoil will support you in this. I wish you good harvests. Not just rain, because you don't wish for rain. You wish for a good harvest. Wishing you good yields, good prices, and glory to Ukraine. Bye.